Good evening, everybody. So tonight, this one article I chose was entitled 4 Decisions That Will Change Your Life. The choices you make today will be the stories you tell about your life tomorrow. It's an article that's written by Craig Grushit. We'll call him Craig G for now. It comes from a magazine called Relevant Magazine. I haven't heard of this magazine before. I was looking through all the different type of magazines or articles, and everyone I came across, every article wound up being some sort of blog until I came across this one. And this one, I believe, is March and April issue. So this magazine, it looks like it's mostly known for its music side of it, current music, but more focus on the Christian artists. And it also has information about different current affairs, things going on in the world. It has secular music and film artists, but what's cool is that the secular artists that it highlights are all Christians, or claim to be Christians. And then there's also just the normal articles that you would find, like the one that I'm going to be talking about tonight, that's written by Christian authors. Now, some of the artists that they had in this magazine is Propaganda. A lot of you probably never heard of Propaganda. I think he's pretty cool. I don't agree with all the songs he's made, but he's pretty neat. And then Kirk Franklin, a little more hip-hop, a little bit more, does have some traditional. Then some of the secular artists that this one highlighted in this issue was Martin Scorsese and Chris Pratt. Yes, Chris Pratt is a Christian. He's a pretty devout Christian. It's kind of cool. Now about the article, it's written by what was his name? Craig G. And again, the title was 4 Decisions That Will Change Your Life. In this article, he talks about how we all have different choices and different events that come in our life. But it's not always the big ones that are the most important. He says that every decision we make matters, even the seemingly small ones. He gives 4 points that will help me make godly decisions. The first point he states is that starting something changes your story. So this whole thing is about how your entire life is essentially a story. And every little piece about what's going on, regardless how small it is a part of that story. It's not the large choices or stories that make someone who they are. One of the examples he used was Daniel. Every time you think about Daniel, you think about Daniel in the lion's den. But that's not really made Daniel who Daniel was. That wasn't his whole story. Daniel had a whole bunch of other small things that happened in his life. That one story is not what made Daniel who he was. It was all those little things, such as serving the king with an excellent spirit. Daniel made a decision at some point in his life early to serve faithfully. We don't know when Daniel made this decision or why. According to Craig G, he says that all we know is that Daniel made one decision, starting one habit that changed his entire story. And then the second point that Craig brings up is stop letting things get in your way. The word repentance literally means to change course and return to God and His path for us. We don't always pick the right path. There's always different paths, different ways to go. A lot of times we tend to take the easy path. We all know what happens when we do that. It's important to be able to see when the path, whichever path we take, when it starts leading us off course. We need to have a good idea, Craig talks about, of when to stop and make a change. He explains that sometimes when we are trying to juggle too many things, we become overwhelmed. Instead of continuing down the wrong path and trying to make it work, we should just take a moment and pause, sleep on it, on the decision before we continue. Third point, he says, stay where God planted you. There is that saying, that everybody's heard, the grass is greener on the other side, or the grass, stay where you're at because the grass isn't greener on the other side. Craig tells about a friend of his who was a very successful businessman. His friend decided to work with the church, but he never seemed to find a fulfillment no matter how much he did. I mean, he was an extremely smart guy. He started 2 huge businesses by age of 20, but he just couldn't seem to find his purpose. And Craig talks about how he convinced him, let's just stay the course, man. Just let it, keep working at it. God will help you as long as you stay planted. So he did, and he ended up developing an app that maybe a few of you heard of, the YouVersion app. So he says, if you are tempted to walk away, seek God, because you don't know what he can do if you have the courage to stay. The final point that he makes is go where God leads, which almost sounds a little bit contrary to staying put. But we have to know when God is telling us to go somewhere else. We need to be able to follow him. God doesn't always give us a blueprint or a step-by-step instruction guide to what he wants us to do. Sometimes we have to have faith that he knows what he's doing. If he calls you to do or go somewhere that makes no sense at all to you, don't question it, just go. Craig says, if God calls you to go, you have to leave where you are. You don't want to miss what he's doing. It ends by saying our stories are more than just one big event. Our stories aren't even only ours. Our stories are tied to a much, much, much bigger story. When you stand at the fork in the road, Craig says, have the faith and courage to choose the hard path or the easy one when the hard one is the right one. Because everything we do is tied to a much bigger story than what our own individual stories are. Thank you.